In this video, I'm going to share with you how to sell training to companies by giving you a simple 3-step plan. And before we wrap up, I'm going to share with you the biggest mistake that experts make when trying to sell training to companies that can cost them 12 to 24 months in lost time and lost cash flow to their business. So look, organizations around the world are spending over $390 billion a year developing their employees and their leaders. And that number is expected to grow to over $500 billion by the year 2030. And frankly, I actually think that estimate is a bit low because every leader of every major organization that we talk to says the same thing. They need to basically reskill or upskill their entire workforce because of AI, whether that's directly or indirectly impacted by AI, which means the training industry is just going to keep growing and growing. And if you're a consultant, you're a leadership coach, you're a keynote speaker, you're a services provider, training programs like workshops is one of the smartest service delivery offerings that you can add to your business in order to create another revenue stream. And so now's really the time to do that. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you a simple 3-step plan to get you going. You're definitely gonna wanna take notes for this one, so let's dive in. Step number 1 is to get clear on exactly who you are going to be selling to. And by that, I mean the corporate decision makers that have the authority and the budget to work with you. And in some part, this really depends on what kind of training, what the topics are that you are planning to sell to organizations. So let's start by looking at the specific decision makers that you want to target. And by decision makers, I mean the folks who not only have the budget to work with you, but also have the authority to say yes to working with you. And who those decision makers are depend in part on what kind of training you're selling, meaning what topics are you training employees, managers, or leaders on? If you're a leadership coach or a people expert, you're probably going to be training on topics that fall into the category of power skills, things that at one point in time were called soft skills, but organizations figured out that those so-called soft skills are absolutely critical and are what power their organization. So fortunately now they're called power skills. Also, you might be selling something that is applicable enterprise-wide, meaning employees in any department or division or business unit could take advantage of it. And in those cases, these will likely be the decision makers, the job titles that you're looking to go after. You're looking for the chief learning officers or CLOs. You're looking for the chief people officer or CPO, or the Chief Human Resources Officer, the CHRO. Those are similar roles, not exact, and depending on the organization, they might have all of the above or a couple or just one. You're looking for people like the Vice President or Director of Talent Development, or TD, or the Vice President of Learning and Development, L&D, or the Vice President of Learning and Organizational Development, L&OD. What it's called in any particular organization really depends on that particular company. You might also be looking for someone who's called the head of people strategy, the senior manager of organizational effectiveness, and/or HR business partners. If you're dealing with a very large organization, and let's say they have 6 or 7 different business divisions, they could have the head of HR in each and every one of those divisions or line of business. And it could be that one of the HR business partners in just one of those business units is interested in working with you, and that's the door you go in, and you have such success there, you end up being bumped up to the chief learning officer or the chief people officer in order to land and expand throughout the organization. So these are just some of the job titles that you want to make sure you're connecting with on LinkedIn and that you're getting in front of through webinars, speaking opportunities, and more. So if you're looking to offer training programs that are on a more technical skill or what would be considered a hard skill, or you have a topic that's very specific to a certain department or type of job function, then you need to really zero in on the exact decision makers that would be responsible for that type of skill or that type of department or function inside the organization. And just some of the job titles that you might be looking for are things like department vice presidents or business unit vice presidents or directors or senior directors. You might have something that's applicable to the technology department led by the chief information officer. Maybe you want to work with the vice president of logistics or engineering and manufacturing, operations, or customer service. Again, it depends on where your area of expertise is going to have the greatest value and relevance inside an organization. Maybe it's the VP of customer service, the heads of quality assurance or risk management, technical training managers, or even a plant or a facility manager. At Bold House, we have experts who are working with decision makers across all of these job functions, as well as the last list I gave you. It all depends on the content that you're looking to train employees and leaders on. Step number 2 is to identify what gap your training is going to fill. Why do they need you versus the training they've already invested in or that they're already doing? Here are 4 of the biggest reasons we see that organizations invest with an outside expert like you. The first is better quality and results. Maybe you've designed a better mousetrap. The way that you teach emotional intelligence, or the way that you teach employee wellness, or the way that you teach employee safety is better than what's on the market. And you have the metrics to back that up. That's an excellent gap to fill. Or perhaps the training that you offer is more cost effective than the majority of trainings out on the marketplace. Anytime an organization can get better results for a lower investment, that's a compelling reason for them to work with you. Or maybe faster delivery. Perhaps what normally takes multiple days to train on, you've condensed down into a half a day. Or maybe you've designed a learning program that can be delivered in 15 or 30 minutes a day, or perhaps you do it in 1 hour a week. But if you can help leaders and employees spend less time in training and more time on the job, that's going to appeal to decision makers. Or perhaps you're providing missing bandwidth. There's a topic that you train on that isn't already covered by the organization, or maybe their internal trainers simply don't have time to get to it. And using an outside expert like you is going to give them the bandwidth they need to make sure their employees and leaders have the skills they need. Now, of course, there's more gaps than this, but hopefully this gives you something to think about what value proposition your training is bringing to companies. And maybe it's several of these combined with additional ones. Get clear on what that is so you can communicate that value to decision makers. So those are the 4 most common gaps that your training can fill. Now I want to show you your shortest paths to cash flow. And because there's so much content to cover here, I've split this into 2 parts. So this is part 1. I've dropped the link below into part 2. You want to go check that out right now because it's where I show you exactly how to get into the cash flow with your training programs. Click on it now and I'm going to meet you straight there.